Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new, welcome. This video has been requested by a viewer and it was highly requested on my previous YouTube channel. A question that I get asked frequently is how do I maintain a clean burning candle and how do I avoid sooting and or murky wax pools? Some candles perform flawlessly without any issues, and some tend to act up at the midpoint of the burn and need a little extra TLC. Today, I'm going to give you some quick and helpful tips as to how I care for my candles from start to finish. Let's get into it. So let's start with the different style wicks that come on both Bath & Body Works and Goose Creek candles. And tip number one is going to be knowing how and when to trim your wicks versus when not to, from the beginning of the candle to the midpoint. So if you look at Mary Mimosa and Vanilla Balsam, both of these candles have the thick rope-like wicks. However, both of them are different in size. Mary Mimosa's wicks are a little more short and stubbier than Vanilla Balsam. These are the wicks that you do not want to trim because on every candle that I have had with the thick rope-like wicks, no matter what size they are, they always tend to self-trim themselves. So prior to lighting this candle, you do not want to do any wick trimming. Just light the candle and let it burn. Next up, we have an example of two candles that have the thin flat wicks. These are candles that you definitely want to trim the tip of your wicks on because these do not self-trim and these wicks tend to curl over when you're burning the candle. So if you end up just lighting this candle without trimming it, what's going to happen is your wick is not going to get shorter. It's just going to curl over and it's going to result in mushroom topping, which is also known as carbon buildup, which can then lead to sooting. And we want to avoid that. Now I'm going to demonstrate the exact amount that I typically trim off of the tip of my thin flat wicks. So I already trimmed down one of my wicks because Spiced Gingerbread was giving me a little hard way to go with trimming the wick. So hopefully this next wick won't be difficult. But what I typically do is I grab the tip of my wick and right underneath where my fingernail is, I trim the tip off. So that is how much of the wick I typically cut off prior to burning when it comes to the thin flat wicks. The next wick style that I want to go over is the thin core wicks. Now, if you notice, all three of these candles have the same wick style, but different lengths. So obviously you want to trim the wicks that are the tallest. So if you take a look at Bubbly Rosé, that wick is very long. And I pretty much do the same thing with the thin core wicks as I do with the thin flat wicks. I hold the tip of the wick and right underneath my finger, I clip the wick off. Cranberry Pear Bellini is a little tricky. That one, you could leave it alone and see how it does while it's burning. But just to play it safe, I would trim the tip of the wick of that candle. Fresh Balsam, I definitely would not trim that thin wick. I would just light it and let it burn. So just a brief demonstration. I'm going to grab the tip of the wick, take my trimmer and go right underneath my fingernail. Now Bubbly Rosé and Fresh Balsam have about the same height of wick, so now you could just light the candle and let it burn. As far as when to trim a wick after you've burned it, but it's not completely at the midway point to where you don't trim it much, and I'll show that in another clip, I would trim just below where the carbon buildup is. So that much. That's how much I would trim off of each of those wicks just to make sure that the candle doesn't soot too much when it's burning, because this candle is the candle that has those thick rope-like wicks. So those are the ones that are prone to sooting the most. Now this candle doesn't have huge mushroom tops on it, but if you do notice the candles like the thin core wicks that can still get huge mushroom tops when you overburn the candle, because usually at the halfway point, they don't really form huge mushroom tops anymore. But if you do notice that if you happen to overburn your candle, then you're just going to trim off that mushroom top. And usually at the halfway point, you no longer have to trim your wicks. Some of the White Barn core wick, thin core wick candles, you may still have to continue trimming a little past the midway point because those wicks just stay tall. But once you get past the halfway point, they shouldn't elongate too much. And you shouldn't have to stay on top of trimming them too much. Once you get to the midpoint of your candles, if you notice that your wicks look nubby like this, do not trim them. Just light it and let it go. It doesn't have any huge mushroom tops, nor is the wick super elongated. So at this point, you just want to light it up. And if you notice any soot coming off the candle, just give it a minute, let it self-correct itself, let the wax start to pull out, and that soot should go away, and you should be able to burn your candle with no problem. If you notice, we are now at the midpoint with both of these candles. So if you happen to notice that your candles are starting to drown at this point, just refer to tip numbers 2 and 3 on how to maintain and clean a wax pool and how to treat puny wick syndrome. And I'm going to use balsam and bergamot as an example of a dirty wax pool that you can easily clean out before it gets too murky. Once you extinguish the candle, just take an absorbent paper towel or tissue and just gently swirl around in the wax pool, and the tissue or paper towel will absorb all of the wick residue out of the wax pool. If you happen to knock your wicks around a little bit, it's okay. Just take the tip of some scissors, or if you have a wick dipper, and just straighten them back up. And also, if you notice any fallout in your wax pool from the wicks, you can take your wick dipper and just scoop them out. And now your wax pool is much cleaner for the next burn. Also, if you happen to notice that your wicks are puny or starting to drown in the wax, you can use this same technique. Extinguish the candle, take an absorbent paper towel or tissue, dip it in there. You don't have to swirl it around, just hold it and dip it in there. Lift it out, let the leftover wax fall in, and then your wicks will be taller, so when you do the next burn, they shouldn't drown. This is a tip that I usually use when I have puny wick syndrome. If you don't feel like using tissue or paper towel to do this tip, you can also extinguish the candle and carefully take it and dump some of the wax into a wastebasket. Not too much, just enough for the wicks to be high enough above the wax level so that when you relight the candle, you have a good flame, you'll get good projection, and your wicks won't drown and be puny, and you will be able to finish the candle down to the bottom. And here's an example of balsam and bergamot burning with a cleaner wax pool and a better flame. The wicks aren't drowning, the wicks aren't producing any soot, and I will be able to finish this candle off all the way down to the bottom without having to put it on my warmer. Now, if your candle does not self-correct itself after doing this and your wicks continue to just self-trim, for me, my maximum of soaking up wax and pouring off wax is about 3 times for one candle that misbehaves. If you notice that you are soaking up wax or pouring up wax too much and you get tired of it, do yourself a favor and finish that fragrance off on a candle warmer. They are literally sold just about everywhere. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them off of Amazon, and they also have different styles and designs. It's up to you if you want to get a bottom warmer or a top lamp warmer. But those definitely come in handy when you get candles that misbehave, that you just can't finish because the wicks dud and drown in the wax pool and you can't relight the candle. If you have candles that soot, or if you have candles that are light throwers and it's like you just don't want to waste your time lighting it because you can't smell it anyway, you can get your money's worth by tossing it on a candle warmer. So all hope is not lost if you get tired of doing this tip, because I know for myself, when it comes to the candles that misbehave, I don't have to do this for every single candle, but the ones that just give you a hard way to go, it definitely can get frustrating and you could just be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm ready to just toss the candle in the trash. But this tip should help. And again, if all else fails, just invest in a warmer. Some of them are more expensive than others. Get what's in your price range and just see how you feel about using a warmer for those candles that give you a hard way to go. Tip number 4, burn time. I know we all love the fragrance we get from our candles, so much so that we can end up going past our burn time. Don't burn your candles for more than 3 to 4 hours. Doing so can result in exhausting your essential oils, which can lead to a lighter scent, strength, and projection as you continue to burn your candle. Also, you can possibly scorch your wax, causing the fragrance to smell burnt, and you can overwork your wick, which can lead to sooting and murky wax pools. So for example, scents like pistachio and toasted vanilla that have that roasted nuttiness to it, if you overburn this candle and go beyond 4 hours of burn time, you can get like a scorched, burnt smell coming from your candle. This also goes for candles that have like brown sugar and cinnamon notes. That's pretty much it, you guys. I hope this video is helpful so that you can get the best burn performance from your candles. Happy burning!